Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sporting Perspective. It is now the round of eight. We're in the quarterfinals of this 2026 World Cup, and the round of 16 is complete, and it brought a lot of fireworks in a lot of different ways. David, welcome back. James, welcome back. Before we get to the questions, I guess we'll just make it really quick. Quick response. Round of 16 overall. Give me one line.
I would say every match was fun except for the U.S. That's not one. Well, that's one line.
I would say we're finally getting into the meat of the tournament here. It feels like things are really on the line, and it's good to see.
I'm just going to give you one word. I'll say exciting. It has been exciting, and it has been a joy to watch. And hopefully, these matches continue to be exciting. I know James, you, me have been texting a lot, and I think the amount of times after a game I've said I'm exhausted. It's been quite a bit. So,
Yeah, some
but
of these games have been pretty crazy.
yeah. Well, before we get too diving into the matchups that are going to be happening this weekend, let's go back. USA, there's no other real words to say it. They were terrible. Um, 4-1 loss to Belgium. Really, were never in the game at all. James, we'll start with you. What was your reaction and just kind of put into words this tournament for the USA?
I mean, I think there's still things to be proud of. If you're an American, I think that actually the best performance they had all tournament was the first game against Paraguay, and then I don't want to say it went all downhill from there, but we just never quite got back to that level of football. Um, I'm not upset we lost to Belgium. I mean, Belgium still, I think they're like number 8 or 9 in the FIFA rankings. They're not bad. They're obviously at the end of their, golden generation. Um, but a lot of those golden generation guys actually were on the bench. Lukaku and De Bruyne. Doku's young, so I'm not going to put him into that category, but he'll be around for a while. But he even started on the bench, and the youth that they brought in to the midfield in the winger, I can't think of the guy's name, but they just dominated us. Didn't look like. I don't want to say we didn't show up to play. Obviously, if you ask any of those guys on the U.S., I'm sure they they wanted to win and they wanted to were trying, but like to us fans, like they just got completely annihilated. They couldn't connect any passes. They had one shot on target for like 70 minutes of the match, and that one shot on target was the Tillman free kick. So I'm not upset they lost. I'm more disappointed in just how that game ended up. It just wasn't fun. Obviously, you lose 3-2. You're still upset, obviously, but yeah, just it literally was. No one had a good game. Like no, not even. I mean, Matt Freeze had a blunder that was so bad. I guess I can't really fault Balogun just because he didn't get any opportunities. He did have one that he had a point blank shot on goal that he missed, but I just couldn't believe that we weren't trying to press a little harder and play a little more offensive. I thought we just played so far back, and that's not the style that Pochettino normally coaches, and that's not the type of game the U.S. plays.
I think what was most disappointing from the performance was that we thought we'd taken a real step as a country, and I think hope was higher than it's ever been. I think whether you were a U.S. fan or not, most people thought the U.S. was at least going to have a pretty good chance of winning that game. It didn't feel like we were the big underdog as we have been in the past. We have history with Belgium where we played them much tighter than that. And Belgium had not played well the whole tournament. They were down 2-0 and almost ready to go out against Senegal. And the U.S. had beaten Senegal not that long ago. We were feeling pretty good about our odds. A lot of people even said we'd prefer to play Belgium after watching how Senegal has played this tournament. So I think I was just completely shocked at how well Belgium played and how poorly the U.S. played, and I don't know that we're going to get over that for a long time. With a lot of people with their heads held down and the way Pulisic left the match there, and I don't know how much you can take away from this right now. It still really stings. I'm going to be very interested to see how Belgium plays against Spain, whether they look like they've turned a corner and found the right roster, or because there were a few changes that Belgium made with leaving a lot of their big names on the bench as kind of super subs, or I don't know if that was just to fool maybe whatever the U.S.'s plan for the game was, or whether they just needed some fresh blood out there themselves. But whatever they did, it really worked, and Belgium looked great. And it's hard to say if that was all Belgium or that was just how poorly the U.S. played, because I felt like nobody could win a one-on-one. The ball was just completely stuck in the midfield. Pulisic lost something like 11 dribbles in the first half. It was just a total nightmare from start to finish. But I am still excited for soccer. One of the big things I remember on the broadcast was listening to our friendly American commentators beg the U.S. audience to still tune into the World Cup, and that they can still watch soccer before the next World Cup in 4 years. So I am optimistic we'll learn from this, but it was also very, very disappointing.
Yeah, for me, I've been kind of going back and forth on kind of my feeling of it based off of what I saw. It goes back to something of you see who the United States played up to that point. Paraguay, James, you said it, that was probably their best win. Turkey wasn't great. Bosnia wasn't great. Uh, and Australia, fine, whatever. Probably the best team they actually played was Australia outside of Belgium. This was just kind of like I take it kind of from like a basketball, football, all my different sports that I've watched throughout my life. And there is always that like one moment where just, or that one game where a team is just so bad. And it's just, it happens, even great teams, they just have that one night where everything just goes wrong. And if there was a documentary that came out that we heard that the U.S. soccer team, the whole team had food poisoning, would not shock me because they played that bad. I believe they would have lost. This is not taking anything away from Belgium because Belgium is very talented, but I think even Belgium very early in that match said something's wrong here because they even kind of hit the cruise control button for most of that match and being like, yeah, we don't really have to push it. I'm pretty convinced they could have put in probably two more without much sweat. The fact that they scored 1 minute after we scored, I, I think we lose to New Zealand on that day. Like it's just everything went wrong, and mistakes that they were making, you just don't make in the World Cup. You convert passes that are 20 feet away from you. They couldn't even do that. It was just a weird thing, and it sucks because it happened at the biggest moment, at the biggest time when everyone's watching, and it's going to leave a sour taste in everyone's mouth. But I got kind of a mixture of worst night to have your worst game and everyone did it. The other one's a little bit more scary. These guys are just not there for they can't reach the pressure. That might be it too.
I think this U.S. team is at like the obviously take away the Belgian game. They're like at the best tier that they've ever been, but they can't get into that next tier. Hence why we just can't get past the round of 16. I think a lot of these guys, because it was basically the same team, minus Balogun, uh, that we threw out there in Qatar. And like we actually scored goals this World Cup. We could not score in Qatar, but yeah, we're still just kind of on the precipice of like there is momentum, but they just they just can't reach that like next tier. They're still below the Belgiums, the Frances, the Moroccos, the Spains, the Argentinas. Like they're still just below them.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I'll say, it if there's like a comparison, like you were saying, Sean, for sports, it reminded me. Now, granted, obviously you have series in basketball, but like some of those series, in the NBA where every sharpshooter and role player on one team is just drilling threes.
Yeah.
and the other team who's not necessarily better, but maybe they're on their home floor and are favored to win, are turning the ball, have like 15, 20 turnovers. Like being a Suns fan, the one that I get reminded of is when we played Dallas a couple years back in the playoffs and they just got run off the court. And actually, like you said, with food poisoning, I think it came out that some of the Suns players had COVID. But it was one of those where, like, you sit there and you're like, oh my God, Luca can't miss. Oh my God, Jalen Brunson can't miss. I guess this was actually quite a while ago. Jalen Brunson was on the Mavericks. Uh, but everyone, I just remember watching that game with my dad, and I was just like, oh my God. And I think the Suns were down like 40 at halftime. And then it just kept snowballing. And it was one of those games where just right off the kickoff. I mean, Matt Freeze was tested within like the first minute, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Uh oh, all right, what do we got going on here?" And then, yeah, then it
Yeah.
just I did not have fun watching
Yeah,
that
for
game.
me, the one that had the reminder, I had the reminder of was this is not that long ago. It was like 2 years ago. Was when Oregon played Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Oregon was undefeated, and everyone's like, "This is Oregon's year." And remember, Ohio State scores within the first 2 minutes, and all their guys look they're in super turbo, and Oregon looks like they're in super slow mo. And you're like, "What the hell happened here?" Like this doesn't make it. They're beating them like 38 to 35 to nothing at half, and it's like this is just weird.
Sports
That's
are
kind of how that felt a little bit.
sometimes that team just get punched in the mouth early, and you have to play a little bit different game than maybe you were preparing, and all of a sudden pressure's on, and you have to create something on your own and make adjustments in real time. And sometimes things just don't work out that way. And it looked like we were, deer in the headlights from the beginning of that game, where Freeze is forced to make maybe his best save of the tournament a minute and a half into the game, where I think everybody collectively was, looking at each other going, this is going to be a long night.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask this question really quick, and I might continue. This might continue the USA talk. What they're all three host nations embarrassingly got knocked out. You could use embarrassingly in different ways for this case, but which one do you think is the worst? Canada, U.S., or Mexico?
For me, I'm going to say the U.S. I think Canada. I mean, they were playing Morocco. I think the fact that they even got to the round of 16 is a win for them for never having scored a point, never having had a win. I thought, I mean, what they put forward, I thought was very impressive. Mexico, to me, I think we all picked Mexico to win. Mexico at least was fun to watch. They just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. They were crossing it in. They had opportunities. To me, the U.S. was the most. I don't want to say, well, yeah, kind of embarrassing, but we didn't even have shots on target. I mean, we just, like David said, we had turnovers. Our 1v1 play was terrible. The defense was bad. And Sean, you said it. We couldn't connect passes. I mean, like simple passes, just were just off.
I don't think there's any doubt that it was the U.S. that was the most embarrassing of many of the host countries. And part of that is just because of how well they started the tournament and how well they looked going in. And Canada, I didn't think looked particularly great in the group stage, and I thought they hung with Morocco for the first half. I think it was 0-0 or 1-0 going into the second half. So I thought they played pretty well relatively until Morocco was just too good. And Mexico, even though they ran, I don't think they conceded the goal in the group stage. They still didn't seem like they'd been tested, and I think a lot of people were impressed with Mexico. I don't think too many people looked at that match and really thought Mexico played terribly. I think maybe there was some poor strategy in the second half with just how they were crossing the ball and not really taking advantage of having the extra man. But they were entertaining. I think this was a huge win for Mexico City. People like some of the views and the fans, and I think it was like a great expose for them. And I just can't say the same for what the U.S. did. I think anybody who watched that U.S. match, I don't think we gained an extra. I don't think we gained any fans from watching that game. And I think a lot of people watching Mexico, even like they still played pretty valiantly. It was still fun to watch. They still played their brand of football. And the U.S., I just think they set the bar higher than we had in the past, and that makes this hurt more than it has.
Yeah, so I can make an argument for all three. So I'm going to kind of make an argument for all three. U.S. is easy. They were terrible. They looked really bad. They had a lot of hype. They just laid an egg. It looked really bad, and they couldn't do elementary things. Canada, their game was fine, and I think a lot of people in Canada would have been completely chill with the fact, in the world, be like, okay, Canada won a game. They lost to Morocco. The problem was with the post game comments from the manager being a moron. If he doesn't say anything, then nobody cares. They're like, Canada did a great job. But he had to go out there and say, we were better than Morocco today. We were better on the field. You're a moron. You now look stupid. Like, like
He said I'd rather be Canada than Morocco.
yeah. And it's like,
And that's an
dude,
American manager, Jesse Marsh.
yeah. And he starts bringing up analytics that are so easily, disputed. We won possession. Well, guess what? Yeah, you can kick the ball back and forth between the goalie and your defenseman all game and win possession. That doesn't mean anything. So yeah, the post game did not look good. They were fine, but I thought that was embarrassing. Mexico, I think they're going to. It may not be right now. I think down the line, and it may be as soon as a few weeks from now. I think they're going to just be kicking themselves in the aspect of they missed a golden opportunity to potentially make the finals. You were up a man half of the match in your home country in the hardest stadium to play in. England, we had all said a week before, had been pretty shaky up to that point, and they'd been in Mexico for about 24 hours. And you can't pull off that W. I don't think it's embarrassing. They look good. It was a hell of a match and everything like that. I think they'll kind of walk away from it over time, being like, man, we really missed an opportunity. And Mexico is one of those countries that a lot of people just kind of give passes to, and they keep saying it's a football nation, it's a football nation. They haven't been past this round in almost 40 plus years now. So it's kind of like one of those things of, I know everyone harps on the USA, but the USA has had a better track record than Mexico over the last 40 years, which is crazy to say.
They
So
should have set off more fireworks
I
by the
just,
England hotel.
yeah, I just feel like Mexico, missed a very big opportunity to finally be like, hey, I don't want to say we're back, but like, take us for real, because the path was there. So, which leads me just to my last question before we get into the picks of the eight. This whole tournament has obviously changed quite a bit. 48 teams, the extra rounds, the VAR. I know I posed this question in a different way before the show, but I'm actually going to change it because the VAR thing came up. You know, with all these changes, has there been something that's really stood out to you overall that has either helped the tournament or taken away from the tournament? Because there's been so many different conversations of things off the pitch. Is there something you want to see different in the World Cup in 2030? Is there something that you really liked? What is your takeaway? Because now we've got a lot of the matches done. What have been your takeaway? So many changes that have happened for this tournament. And what have you liked and what have you not liked?
I have not liked VAR. I think there needs to be just more consistency. Um, I mean, like, even what game was I watching today?
Egypt.
Yeah, but there was something. They were looking at something like a foul in the. They're like there was a foul that occurred, or that one of the teams was like, asking me to go to VAR, and the ref just shook the other team off and was just like, no, I'm not going to go look. So it's just they need to figure out a way where it's like either not. I don't know, not. There's so much opinion with who the ref is in the game that like game over game just doesn't feel the same. And I know not to bring in other sports, but like obviously like in the MLB, there's different umpires who call tighter strike zones, and I get that. And in soccer, football, there's refs who are more lenient, a little more strict. But I don't know. It just seems whack with this whole VAR thing. Just seems like we have the technology, and they just seem like they're picking and choosing when to use it, and then they slow it down sometimes to so slow. It's like, well, yeah, if you're going like one frame by one frame, it looks way worse. Like, let's use technology to an extent, but also like look at the play in real time because that's when it happened. We don't run our lives in slow motion.
Aside from the low hanging fruit, which is that VAR has been pretty much a disaster, I would say, with the way that it's been used. I think the biggest takeaway for me, other than hydration breaks being the pinnacle of greed and a strange new tactic where some teams are trying to make it to the hydration break to for a big reset in play and an extra big timeout where you know the coaches get a big opportunity to talk to their team in a way that they normally wouldn't until the half, which is definitely affecting games and something to think about. Um, I really think the size of the tournament is still the biggest talking point, and I really hope we go back to a smaller format. I think there haven't been as many great games as I would expect in the World Cup, at least matchup wise. We're going to get a lot of these matchups now, but I do feel like we've watered down the field, and I don't think it's a huge accomplishment. This, winning that first knockout stage, that round of 32 that has never existed before, and I don't like that teams aren't being tested until their fourth or fifth match into this tournament. It feels like it's just fluff at a certain point. The group stage felt more unimportant than it's ever felt. It felt like, with the exception of just a couple teams who completely let themselves down, almost everybody's guaranteed to go through if you just put one decent performance together, especially if you're a big nation. And by having the third match in a lot of those games be completely meaningless, it felt like we had to wait a long time to watch some really good games. And um, I don't know what you do here because I can see the other side of this where it's probably more money to FIFA, having more teams involved and more fans from countries that normally aren't there are tuning in, and some of that is great. It's we wouldn't have Cabo Verde probably without this, and what a story they've been. So I can see both sides, but I do think it's been a little bit of a mistake, in my opinion, to expand the field.
Yeah, I mean, I can second a lot of things that you guys have already said. I'm actually going to say something that probably rewrites soccer more than anything else, and that's the fact, especially in these major tournaments, we've seen it with other sports. You got to get more officials on the pitch. Like, we can't just have one guy running around expecting to see everything, and now being the assistant, being the VAR. I feel like we got to get to a spot. These athletes are too good. They're too fast. There's too much going on, and we got cameras everywhere for every single one of these games. Everyone's just going to complain, and the ref could have the best matched game or called game or match, and he's still going to get criticized. I think they're in a complete lose-lose situation. VAR is kind of out of control at this point. I know they have the line judges, doing their thing and helping out where they can as well. But World Series they increased from four umpires to six or seven. You know, these guys expand, and I hate to say FIFA's so corrupt, but we've seen some of these refs come in, and a lot of you're already hearing the announcers being like, "Well, this guy's not great in this situation." This is supposed to be the best in the world, not only athlete wise, but also you're supposed to bring in the best referees. We shouldn't be, oh my God, this guy's not good at this, or that we shouldn't be evaluating the head ref going into it. It's just not a good thing. FIFA's got the money. They're not broke. I think they can afford to get another guy or two out there to help out. It's just these athletes they're so good, and some of the rules even at this point as an American, you look at and you just watch Twitter and stuff like that, like Kane's foul against Mexico,
Mexico.
where he hits the guy's foot and it's in the air, and they're obviously both going for the ball, but that's a goal kick. But then someone in another match gets absolutely mauled to the ground, and you're like, nothing gets called. It's like, oh yeah, play on. It's like some of these things are just odd, and I get some of the fouls make sense, but it's just certain things just don't line up, and it's there needs to be a little bit of an assistant out there, in my opinion, at this point. And I know that rewrites soccer. The hydration break, I think that, in my opinion, I have a really easy fix to that. I think both managers should get one timeout, and they can use it at any point.
That would certainly change things. I mean, that's about as American as I can think of a rule change, but it would be fun. It would actually
But it
give
would be like, at least then, okay, you use it or you don't. Okay, cool. But
yeah.
then, like, there's some kind of, like, connector to it of if you use your timeout, you have to make a sub.
Mm.
Something like that.
I think one thing that's actually stood out a lot is the red cards in this tournament. I don't think I've agreed with a single one of them being a true red card. It looks like they're evaluating the tackles in a way that it doesn't take any context to the actual play that's going on. They're purely looking at the tackle, which fair, but also if you're going to do that, I think we have to get rid of the 1 game ban, especially just if you're talking just in the tournament, because these games are too important for these decisions that are just like a red card should be someone doing something so egregious. It should be a punch. It should be a jump kick. It should be just something that's like highly debated, or have someone miss it. It's like almost a game and a half, basically, for one decision. I think is just it needs to be way more egregious than it currently is.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
One good thing I will say, I think the fans have been great. I think that how this World Cup has gone down is better than how people thought it might have gone down pre-tournament. I mean, fans have shown up. Games for the most part, obviously now are going to be sold out. But people were like afraid to come to America and for reasons we don't need to go and talk about politically. But I mean, cities, I'm sure, revenue wise and economically, are loving all the money coming in, and
I mean, the big winner, in my opinion, outside of FIFA, because they made a ton of money. Mexico, I think, did a great job showing their 3 stadiums. There's been great reports out of there. Canada, fantastic, 2 stadiums. Everything's great out of there. And then our 11 stadiums overall on social media across the board, it's been raving reviews. So the 3 host nations, it sounds like there's been 98% positive from our European, African, Asian friends, South America too. The host nations did a really good job, and I think FIFA's also gotten really lucky in the aspect of, we're about to go into the final 8 here. We'll go into talking about those games. We've got 8 nations that are all big names in soccer world, and you got a lot of superstars as well. So that's really going to help out as well, because in these tournaments anything can happen, and we could very well end up with 4 nations that are tiny as hell with no marquee household names. And the great thing about this tournament at this point is, in the quarterfinal, you still got what, 3, 4 guys still potentially going to win the Golden Boot at this point. We still don't really know. Outside of
I'm also curious if this is going to be the new norm, because the next World Cup in 2030 is not just in one country. It's going to be Spain, Portugal, and Morocco.
I think going forward we're going to see this. I know 34 is just Saudi Arabia because of money, but I think that will be the last time we ever see just a single country running it. So, but all right, well, should we talk some matches?
Yeah, I don't want to talk to this anymore.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so let's. First match happening on Thursday, 1:00. That's going to help Europe a lot. France going to be taking on Morocco. France took down Paraguay. That game kind of got chippy at the end, but for the most part, France had control of most of it. Morocco took down Canada 3-0. We kind of mentioned it. Morocco, for the most part, I guess, except for the Canada's coach, everyone thought Morocco was going to win. So who do you got? France, Morocco, happening in Foxborough. It's going to be hot.
Yeah, I think I'd still pick France even if Ishmael Saibari wasn't fit. I guess we don't know. He could play, but I know he got sent off. Sent off. He got injured um, in the first half against Canada. He's a goal scorer. I'm pretty sure he scored in all the group games. Obviously, getting sent or sent off, getting injured, he didn't score. But he's a big time playmaker, big time scorer, as seen by his transfer from PSV to Bayern Munich. So that's pretty huge. So obviously, Morocco missing him. Guys like Hakimi are going to really have to step up and provide some type of scoring threat. France, I didn't think looked particularly great against Paraguay. I thought Paraguay played really well. They played their park the bus mentality, um, and it took an Mbappe penalty kick to win that game. So I think France needs to look to open that offense back up. They're way too talented to not. And Morocco, I think they need to stay dangerous on the counter. They're a huge counter attacking team. I think this game is going to be like a 1-0, 2-1 type of game in France's favor.
For me, this is the best match of the quarters. I think both of these teams are playing really well right now, and I think either one of these teams, whoever wins this, is going to end up in the final. Um, I was pretty impressed. I've been pretty impressed with Morocco in almost every match, and for some reason they just don't have that name brand stuck in my head yet, where I just expect them to play as well as they do, and they just always find a way. France is obviously scary. Everybody knows what France can do with all of their star power and the way Mbappe has been playing, but I do think Morocco is going to find a way to win this game. And I guess a little bit of an upset, but to me, it's not really. I think it's going to be maybe 3-2. I think we're going to see some goals.
I think this is going to be a hell of a matchup. Like you said, David, probably the best matchup of the quarterfinals. I'm going to take France. I'm just going to continue taking France. They were my pick at the beginning. I'm going to hold that out. Uh, if you guys remember, this was actually the matchup in the 2022 World Cup. This was a semifinal matchup. So, Morocco, eight in the world, they belong here, and it's going to be a tough matchup. And yeah, dare I say, looking at the rest of the board, this might be the last team that can beat France, in my opinion. So,
Morocco's young too. They're going to be around for a while. I mean, I think they're one of the younger teams in this tournament. Like people need to start taking them seriously.
yeah, and they're one of the few teams that I know we were saying tournaments watered down and everything like that. They're one of the teams that have not had an easy path. They kind of got thrown to the wolves the whole way through. Um, they're pretty well contested. They're pretty well. They've had opponents. They haven't played New Zealand, so. Uh, let's go to Friday and Spain taking on Belgium. Belgium, we know how they got here. That wasn't much of a match at all. Spain, very much more tested against Portugal. They snuck in a goal there in the first minute of extra time, if I remember right. Yeah, blanking on my matchups now. But they beat Portugal late. 1-0. Great matchup. Sent Ronaldo out into retirement for Portugal. Who do you got? Spain or Belgium?
I'm taking Spain. I think their defense is just playing right now at an all-time high. That's what's winning them games. They literally have not conceded a goal. I hope they don't take Belgium lightly though. I think Rudy Garcia in that Senegal game unlocked something that we hadn't seen from Belgium all tournament. That was actually playing decent football, and that was he subbed off Doku and De Bruyne, and then he didn't start Doku and De Bruyne in the U.S. game, and they in the what was it like the last 20 minutes of that Senegal game, And then the entire U.S. game, they've looked just so much better than anything we saw earlier. Um, However, I just don't think they're going to have enough to beat the Spaniards. I think we're going to see that style of football finally come to fruition for Spain, where it's possession play, and you have to take advantage of the opportunities you get, because I think Spain will finally play that style of football we're used to seeing, where they just dominate possession and try to walk in goals.
I would be shocked if what Belgium did to the U.S. they were able to replicate against Spain. I think it's just a totally different animal, and I think Spain's going to like control possession like they always do. Spain hasn't really shown that they can put in a lot of goals. So if Belgium is able to score one or two, they do have plenty of offense, and Lukaku has still shown he's incredibly impactful when he's out there. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Belgium jumped out to a lead and Spain all of a sudden had to wake up and ends up scoring three or four. But we look at all the stars that are left in this tournament, and there's one here who we haven't talked about at all, and that's Lamine Yamal. Is he going to have a moment here finally? I mean, he was probably one of the picks for the player of the tournament going into this. And how many times have we said his name in the last few weeks? It's few and far in between. And this is a perfect opportunity for him to really get the ball rolling and get some real momentum here for Spain going into the second half of this tournament. So I do think Spain wins, probably convincingly, but the part of me that just got their hopes crushed by this Belgium team is hoping that Belgium will play a really competitive match, and I'll feel better about that loss for the United States.
I think Spain wins this one, but I think this is actually a very competitive match in the aspect of Spain really got pushed against Portugal, and Belgium really did not. Belgium was able to rest some of their stars, and it is an older team, so getting some of those miles saved up, I think is going to help them out quite a bit. This game is being played in LA. Spain also hasn't let a goal in yet, so only team to do that. So still got the big zero there. I'll take Spain. I think it's going to be low scoring. Probably a 1-0 type situation, but closer than a lot of people think. Yeah, that's kind of all I got to say about that one. Also, ticket prices for that game plummeted. No surprise. Was 3,000, and now it is 1,000. Losing the United States in that matchup probably hurt quite a bit, and also Ronaldo. Let's be real.
The fact that we're dissecting an 18-year-old is also insane. I mean, I agree, Lamine Yamal hasn't done really anything yet, but if I was 18 years old at this point, I mean, holy crap.
I'm also gonna say how ridiculous it is to have that game being played at noon local time on a Friday for the host country. What are we doing?
I think I saw that too. My only thought for that is, I was gonna say they made it so that the European crowds can watch it and everything, but that was set. That time was set a long time ago.
A lot of the matches at a very strange time. The semifinals next week are about, I think, also noon games. So,
well, I mean, I'll say this just really quickly because I 100% agree with you. The Argentina-Egypt game kicking off at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday was really weird.
even that at noontime local for them, I think they were playing in Atlanta. But
it was
it cannot be good for television ratings unless the overseas market is just completely crushing the local one. Yeah. That's the only thing I can think of, is that there's some sort of algorithm spitting out this time as the best time for some market. But I don't know. I'm pretty disappointed in it as someone who really wanted to make the most of some of these games being in our own country, where you'd think the times would be more favorable for the people there.
And of course, it makes sense to the group stage. You got a lot of stuff going on in group stage. That gets passed. We understand that. But when you get to these knockout stage games, yeah, it's a little weird. I agree. It is a little weird. Let's head over to Saturday. Norway taking on England. Norway, I mean, Holland is just all over the place. That dude is he's a beast. Taking down Brazil by himself. And England, we already talked about taking down Mexico, and probably one of the more impressive wins of this tournament. This game going to be taking place in Florida. This is the most expensive ticket. 2 o'clock uh, Pacific time on Saturday. Who you got?
Yeah, so England is bound to choke, right? I mean, they there's always a moment I feel like in the at least since I've been following soccer uh, pretty heavily. I would say probably 2008, 2009 with the first World Cup I was watching was probably 2010 in South Africa. England just seems to always choke. Uh, so I'm waiting for that moment. And to me, Norway's kind of playing with house money. I mean, like we've talked about previously, they've never been here, or never been here. They haven't been here since like '98. Um, they're a fun team. They probably have the best number nine in the world. I mean, Harry Kane might have something to say about that with the season he put together in Bayern, but with how old Holland is, he's like 24. I mean, he's still got plenty of years to go, and he's doing it on the international stage and with Man City. He literally he scores goals when he wants to. So I'm doing it. I'm picking Norway. I like I said, I think they're playing with house money. They've got nothing to lose. I mean, they've already, if they bow out to England, their fans are still gonna probably do the row and have fun. They've been having fun all tournament, so I think I don't know if I want to call it a Cinderella team, but I think the dark horse type of team continues on. So I'm taking Norway.
We talked a bit last week about how Holland may be the player who's elevated himself the most of anyone this tournament, just through popularity. There's memes of him popping up every single day. The guy is just all over social media, and I really don't see how he's not going to score a few more goals in this game. He knows a lot of these England guys. Um, one of the one of the worst outcomes for this is just how many neutral fans are going to end up being Manchester City fans now following Holland, which is a shame for anybody. But that's just the way this has gone. Uh, I think we're going to do this player for player thing. England should win, but you look back at this Mexico game, and they just had more individual moments of brilliance. I don't think I don't think we've seen their best football, and this is certainly an opportunity for that. This match, I think, is totally up for grabs, though. As much as Norway feels like a huge underdog, if you're just looking at it on paper, it doesn't really feel that way. The games have gone. Brazil, obviously, it felt like a massive win for Norway, which it is. Just to even say those words that Norway just knocked out Brazil is an insane thing to say to someone who's even a non-soccer fan would be like, "What are you talking about?" But that Brazil team hadn't played that well yet, and I don't want to discount that Norway win because it felt like one of the most it felt like one of the biggest wins of the tournament. Just seeing the passion of that win and that like how big that upset was for Norway and their fans. But I do think this is the end of Norway's run. But I wouldn't be shocked if it went the other way. I think it's really really close. But I was impressed with what England did, and I do give them credit for playing in that atmosphere in Azteca and coming out of there and still having a lot of composure. And I do think this is England's actually going to get it done. I don't foresee the epic choke that I'd say they're known for.
Pretty much everything David just said. That was what I was going to say. My heart is with Norway. I want Norway to win. I think my brain, England is going to win. This game, though, Vegas is going off at even. So, and that might be due to the fact that since the United States have been knocked out, all the United States fans have become Norway fans. So maybe that's why. But one ridiculous stat that you guys may have seen: Holland is scoring 1 out of every 13 touches, which is just disgusting. I mean,
I think Norway's also hasn't Norway beaten Brazil every time they've played. I saw
Brazil
something.
has never beaten Norway.
Yeah,
Yeah, granted, they've only played each other 5 times,
five.
but
Yeah,
it's still fascinating. It's the only nation that Brazil has never beaten that they've actually played. It's I think it's now no wins, 3 losses, and 2 draws.
That is a great trivia question.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
we could go into one thing I do want to say. Not that we've talked about other nations dropping off, but Brazil was interesting to me because Carlo Ancelotti had them playing just like a non-Brazilian type of football, which I think was so strange. They were not playing that like eccentric, high tempo, almost like Harlem Globetrottery type of football. So I'm curious. There's no way he sticks around, and I think Brazil needs to get back to their ways of like having fun, kind of a flair type of game because that we didn't see that out of Brazil.
Brazil kind of, this is an extreme example, but Brazil at this point kind of reminds me of Nebraska football. Honestly, it feels outdated. And it felt like that's how it was. They kind of walked in being like, we're Brazil, we're going to win. You haven't won in 24 years.
And you wasted a roster spot on Neymar, who then chirped at the goalie after
Yeah,
scoring a goal to still not be winning.
yeah, it's just weird. It was just, I think that if there's a nation we're going to see really kind of change over this next maybe half decade, I think that's the one because this might have been their real wake up call of, hey, you actually did not look good in this. South America overall didn't look good in this, but you were probably like the fifth or sixth best South America nation in a not very good appearing South America overall. So,
I think you
I
could
like
put
that.
Portugal.
Nebraska football, maybe Indiana basketball,
yeah, something like that where it's like,
UCLA basketball.
yeah, it's like it feels outdated. It feels like, all right, guys, you're living off of almost a quarter century ago now. It's times have changed.
I think Portugal is going to undergo a similar thing once with Brazil having Neymar retire there and without Cristiano Ronaldo. I think both of those teams are going to almost breathe a sigh of relief that they can change now. They can adapt and play a little different style, and I think both of them are going to look very different.
All right, last matchup of the 8, we got Argentina who squeaked one out against Egypt. 3 goals in the last 13 minutes, something like that, something ridiculous. Egypt probably should have won that game. That's a whole conversation for another time. But Argentina taking on Switzerland. Switzerland went to penalties against Colombia. They've got the win. Who do you got in this game? It's taking place Saturday night in Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I still have to go Argentina. Switzerland, I looked it up. This is their first quarterfinal since 1954. Um, they are actually playing a really fun style of football. I've been actually very entertained with Switzerland. They're a fun team. Argentina just seems like one of those teams where they just kind of like play with their food, and then when they're like, oh shit, we need to do something, they can just flip a switch, which we saw. I mean, we went from. I think I texted both of you, and I was just like, all right, well, this is strange. I guess Egypt's up 2-0. They're gonna win this game, and then like you said, Sean, in 13 minutes they scored 3 goals, and it was like, oh, okay. And that's after Messi missed a penalty in the first half. So yeah, I mean, sports is all about finding ways to win when you're not at your best. Even if you have a dud, the good teams can still overcome that, and that's to me what Argentina kind of is right now. They're such a good team that even when they're not at their best, they can somehow grind it out, and that's literally what they did. They just grinded one out against Egypt. So I don't think we see that performance again. Whether it's Messi or the manager, just maybe trying a different approach at how to get these guys unlocked from the start. But I think Argentina I don't want to say wins handedly, but I guess it depends who you're talking to. I think they win this like 2 or 3-0. I think Switzerland has put on a really good show and a really good run in this tournament, but if you're a Swiss fan and you lose to Argentina in the quarters, you can't be upset.
I'm actually going to take Switzerland here. As much as Argentina feels unkillable, feels like they have the whole hand of God thing working in their favor. That there's nothing that's going to stop them right now. I do think that they're going to be pretty mentally exhausted from their last two matches, where it just feels like they just figure out a way to do enough, which is a great quality to have. Don't let it fool you. But I do think they're going to play down a little bit. I think I just see them being tired, and I think their luck is going to run out here. They cannot afford to keep going down to teams and expecting to come back. Messi's been scoring goals at an unreal level, and he also missed a penalty kick, so he could have even more goals. I think he's missed two this tournament, so he could be running away with the golden boot. And while he's probably still going to get one, because I wouldn't bet against him, I think Switzerland is massively underrated. They played really well. I do think Colombia could have beaten them, though. I think they got a little bit lucky escaping that match earlier today. But I think they're more than ready for this game, and they're the ones who are playing with house money in this one. I think Argentina is going to overlook them, and I think Switzerland's going to win maybe 3-1. That's my pick.
I'm going to take Argentina. If there was an award for most dramatic team, they win it. But Messi's on the pitch. He's the best in the world at this point, and they just find a way to score and turn it on at the right time. And I think for every Argentina fan, they would just like to see a quick goal to kind of go into this peacefully for a little bit. I'll just take Argentina. So I don't have too much else to add. Well, there's your 8. Are you guys surprised that it's 6 European nations left? Are you surprised by that or no?
Not really. I mean, when you look at these teams in here, and a couple, I guess you would say, are surprising, but then there's a couple European teams that went out early that was just as surprising. And I think they had by far the most teams in the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I would have maybe thought maybe an extra one or two South American teams would be in there, whether that's a Brazil, a Colombia, and Uruguay. But I mean, it's really right now it's kind of Argentina and everyone else down there. Um, yeah, Morocco would be fun. I don't think an African nation has ever made a World Cup final.
No, the furthest that African nation was semifinals, Morocco last time around. So they're going after their own record. I guess last question before we wrap it up. Um, does any of the other co-hosts on Fox kill Alexi Lawless before this thing's all done?
I don't think so. According to, well, you can tell. Like, I mean, Alexi takes it more personally. I think off. I think it's a bit. I think part of it's a bit between him and Zlatan and Thierry. I'm not gonna say they like love the guy, but it's one thing to talk off air, and then it's another thing where I think Thierry Henry and Zlatan have enough respect for the camera. Alexi Lawless is just gonna say whatever he wants, and you can see it in the eye rolls from Zlatan and maybe not Zlatan as much, but Thierry Henry always just looks annoyed. But maybe that's also just because he's French.
yeah, I think Zlatan's already killed him several times by now, so I'm surprised he still keeps coming back. He's like a zombie. So you think he would have? His opinions might not be as strong now that the U.S. Did what they did, but I expect Zlatan to kill him several more times before the tournament's over.
Yeah, I still love the quote of before the USA game. They were in the stadium, and I think it was Alexi Law said, are you surprised that, America has embraced this game and this tournament? And Zlatan said, well, yes, it's because I'm on the broadcast.
There was.
I also I like that he has his King of the Jungle segment, and
Yeah,
he's still number one.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There was a great quote just today from Zlatan. I think it was today about because Messi missed a penalty early on, and he was talking about how penalties are difficult. He said he's even missed penalties. Thierry's missed penalties, but Lawless has never been asked to take a penalty, so he's never missed any. So,
Yeah, yeah.
never missed.
Yeah, Zlatan by far. I will say. I mean, if Lawless says dumb stuff that gets them to roll their eyes, Zlatan pokes Lawless a lot, which I think is funny. Thierry Henry always just, like I said, he just looks annoyed at Lawless, like he just doesn't want to give him any type of credit for anything he says, which rightfully so, probably.
Zlatan might be number two in right next to Holland to people who have elevated their name during this World Cup. He's certainly going to get a big time job out of this.
Zlatan's a hell of a personality, and he knew what he was doing. What, it was like a decade ago now, when he signed with the Galaxy. He knew what he was getting himself into. He knew he was. Yeah, he knew what he was doing. So.
Did you ever interact with him when you worked with Sportsnet LA?
I never met him personally, but like I cut his stuff. So like I knew of his personality the moment that he came over because like it was like, oh, this dude's just different.
I mean,
And,
the best story all time is right where when he comes to LA and LeBron sends
yeah.
in his jersey and Zlatan signs it and sends it back to him. I mean, how much better can you get?
he's just a character, and I mean, he's a character, a personality, but the biggest thing of all, he backed it up on the pitch. Like he was a one of a kind.
He's like the Gronk of soccer.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's even kind of a weird comparison. But
it is always interesting though too, like when he's talking about all these different guys and all these different players that he's played with. There's only one guy that he clearly says, he doesn't straight out say it, but there's only one guy that he's like, yeah, and it's Messi. It's the only one that he seems to have that extra respect for. That really shows of like, yeah, Messi's just on a different level. Because it's the only guy that he's like, yeah, he's good.
well, it's funny, like if you put Ronaldo, Holland, Zlatan, and Messi, and just put them in front of a random person who doesn't know who any of those people are, and said which one of these is the best soccer player, I don't think anyone's picking Messi.
No, not very many people are picking the 5'8" guy. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about before we jump off here?
That's all for me.
I don't think so.
Cool.
Hopefully the U.S. will get it into gear next World Cup. I think every year the expectation is sky high, and it's just around a 16 exit. So they need to just keep making the quarters a priority, and eventually, I would hope it can happen.
Something will happen.
And that's the spirit. We'll get him in game 2.
Yeah. There's always next World Cup. There's always 4 years from now.
Or you could be Donald Trump and tweet out, "There's always next year,"
Yep.
which that actually happened this morning. All right, that will be this. That will be it for this episode. We'll be back for the Final Four, and I guess on Sunday or Monday. And then I just got to throw it out there. Football's like a month away, guys, which is crazy to think. And we got a lot
American
of
football.
American football.
Real football.
Yeah. And then we got a lot of stuff to talk about basketball, but we'll do that later. We got months before that all happens. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, we'll be back in about 5 days. We'll see y'all soon.